Hello everyone, Sav Drives back here with another video, and today I'm reviewing the 2005 Mercedes G55 AMG. Let's give her a start. So really nice engine note on this car. Let's pop the hood and take a look at the engine. So this car is powered by a 5.5 liter V8 that's supercharged. It makes about 469 horsepower and does 0 to 60 in about 5.1 seconds. Very aggressive design and styling. I love these rims on the AMG models. They always work really well and look great on them. So this engine over here is actually crafted by Robert, and there's actually a video out there with Jay Leno where Robert is actually assembling an engine, and I'm gonna put that here if you want to see it. By hand. That's the same guy that actually put this engine together, and that's really cool. So let's jump in and talk a little more about this car. Alright, so taking a look here, before I jump in the interior, this was one thing I pointed out. The mirrors are different on these previous models. They are a square shape. I've pointed out in my previous video that sleeker design that you see. The back seats, as I mentioned again, is super similar. Here you could see it's almost the same. You have your heated seats mounted here. This is a designo interior also on this car. It's not quilted. That's how they were, and you could see here, let's mute that real quick. You have your bolster controls here, which are only on the driver's side, and these are the designo seats here. So very cool look overall you have in this car. So let's jump more and talk about the car on the inside here. So these gauges are very similar to what you would get on a C-Class of that era, right? But the different thing is they changed this kind of to say AMG, and then they added the compressor lettering down here in the car. So these are the main differences that you'll get on the AMG model. On the 500 you don't have any of that. It's just basic odometer. There's none of that going on. I've updated this screen to an aftermarket one with Android Auto, which makes this car much more enjoyable. You have your heated seats here, and one thing that is very annoying and kind of funny is the cruise control is up here and the signals are down here. On the G63 they are swapped. The signal is on top and the cruise control, or what they call Distronic, is on the bottom. So that's actually swapped out. The seat controls are in the same location. The locks are moved up here. As I mentioned in the other video, your diff controls and AC vents are actually up here, not down. So that's kind of shifted around on this car compared to the newer model. But as you can see, this is almost exactly the same. As I mentioned, there's a lot of things that are very shared. The handbrake is almost exactly the same here too. So there's a ton of similarities in this car. So let me roll up the windows here, and we'll take it for a drive. So the sound isolation, again, very, very, very good here. You can hear there's a bit of creaking when I lean on the panels here. A bit of, I mean, this is kind of solid, but there is a bit of creaking as you drive the car around. This is normal for a car of this age, right? Things will creak, and you just have to get used to it. You can hunt down the creaks in the car if you want. You know, you could do that, and you know, add Velcro or take care or replace some parts on the interior to kind of mitigate that. But overall, it's still a very well put together car. It feels very solid. Now, to talk a bit about the suspension, This car was upgraded to the Bilstein suspension. It's still actually running the stock G55 springs on that Bilstein suspension, or Bilstein, I'm not sure how you pronounce that, but it did make a huge difference. The car is much more comfortable to drive, and it's much more livable. I want to talk a bit about this display here. That display is actually known to fail on these models. As you can see, it's very dark and not clear on there. That has happened also on the previous model G500 that I've owned. It is actually very easy to swap. I just haven't gotten to it yet. But you pull the odometer out, and you order the display. You pull that frame out, the silver frame. The display just really pops out, and you're able to swap it out. It shouldn't take 30 minutes to do, really. The hard part is finding a good OEM display. There's lots of aftermarket ones, and unfortunately when I've ordered those, a lot of the time the colors won't be that perfect on those displays. So let's wait for people to cross here, and then we'll go next. So I will be doing a 0 to 60 soon, once I get the chance, but let's continue to talk about this car. So overall, driving this car, I think it's very comfortable once you swap the suspension out. The steering feels a little more numb compared to what you get on the G63. The G63 one is a little more dialed in. This one is a little more numb. Again, I don't think it's like a huge difference, but I mean, most of these G-Wagons, their steering isn't all that great, right? But this is just something to note here when you're trying these cars out. Overall, I think the driving experience, once you've addressed the suspension on this car, is really a great experience overall. Another thing I want to point out is the responsiveness of this car to get it going is almost immediate, right? It's a step up, definitely, compared to the G63, which has some turbo lag. This car, like, once you get on the throttle, if the power is almost instant, the car feels like it wants to go all the time. But keep in mind, this car pushes out 469 horsepower, whereas the G63 almost pushes 100 more horsepower compared to this car, and they both weigh similarly. When I tested the G63 in my previous video, I did end up getting a 0 to 60 time of about 5 seconds. The official time is 4.8. I mean, you won't get perfect times, right, in real world testing. I'm curious to see what time this car will actually get, so we will try that here shortly. Similar to the G63, I can pull up my speed here on the center panel. Something that I wish the car would have had is just its standalone temperature gauge. It is kind of, inconvenient to have to pull it up on this display down here to see what temperature your car is running at. I'm someone who likes to monitor my car's temperature as I drive it, just in case anything happened, like overheating or anything. I want to make sure that I do not damage my engine and turn it off in time, because most times that something catastrophic would happen to your engine is when it overheats. Usually, if you can turn off the engine in time and it doesn't get to a high temperature, you're in good shape, right? But this car, I believe, will still warn you if it overheats or anything like that. I haven't ever had it do that to me, but I do know that with European cars, a lot of them will do that. I used to have a Range Rover, and when that car overheated, actually the engine used to switch off on its own. So it's pretty cool, and that was a pretty old Range Rover Sport from 1999. So very cool that they do that. Anyways, yeah, when it comes to the overall characteristics of the car, it's very, very, very interesting to me that driving a G500 and G55 and G63, I mean, the cars look so similar, but they drive very differently. Like, the engine and the gears like the transmission, it makes a huge difference on these cars. It's not something small where, you know, you think, oh, they're all going to drive the same. They completely do not drive the same. Especially when it comes to things like fuel economy. So that's again why I would once again rank the G500 as a better daily. So the G500 on the highway, I was able to get up to 19 miles per gallon. I know that sounds crazy, but I really have been able to get that good fuel economy on it. In the city, it was averaging 14 to 15. The G55 in the city averages about 13, and the G63 in the city averages around 11.5 to 12. So they're all, you know, very different. The 500s are much more economic, and that sounds kind of funny because none of these cars are really, you know, that economic, right? But as a daily, the 500 is, you know, lower maintenance, more economic, and you know, more comfortable to drive. So that's something to note here when comparing these cars. So something interesting to note here, when the car is at a standstill, the G55 has a rev limiter at 3,500. The G63 actually is revving way past 3,500 at idle. It's going at like 4,500. So it seems like the rev limiter is much higher on the G63 when revving, when parked at a standstill. What a monster. You can hear like the tires screech on this car. It really goes, puts the power down, just so much power, just amazing. Sounds really good, puts the power down really good. Just such a great car. Overall, this engine is just beautiful, outstanding engine. I think Mercedes did a great job with these engines. They're one of the best engines they've ever made, in my opinion. And keep in mind, this car is doing this with an older transmission. It doesn't have, you know, any of the fancy new transmissions that come on the newer cars like the G63. It's putting the power down with this older, I believe, 5-speed transmission. So just awesome job. It does not feel like it's, you know, 469 horsepower. It really feels fast, like very fast. So amazing job here. And just showing you the difference in cabin here between both. As you can see, you have that classical styling here, where all the controls are. This is something I already talked about, but just giving you an overall look here. And then over here we have the G63's cabin, which is a lot more luxurious and has a lot more features. Definitely one cool thing is that command interface selector that's missing from the other car, and the sleek design of the gear shifter on this car. Everything else is very similar, right? Besides the things I've mentioned. Also on this car you get the paddle shifters on the steering. That does not come on the G55. Okay, so I've decided to pull both cars side by side to show you these differences in a little more detail here. So something that's interesting is on the previous model they put the G55 on the left and where it says AMG on the right, and on the new model it says 63 on the right but AMG on the left. I thought that was a little interesting. Down here, the back cover, the Mercedes logo kind of protrudes out, and there's no lettering here. On the older G55, this is kind of flat. It's like almost like a it's not a decal, but it's just it's painted where it's not silver, it seems. And there's some lettering here. The tail lights are obviously different on both. These ones are more like classic style, these ones are more modernized. Okay, looking up here, the newer model has a rear view camera that's mounted up there. The older one actually does not have a rear view camera there. Now on the side, both cars are extremely similar, if not the exact same. The core difference is where this says V8 bi-turbo and this one says V8 compressor. And then again, the mirrors are different, sleek style with that lighting, and then here you have that square style mirror. Everything else almost seems very identical. As you can see, it's super similar. Down here it's longer, right, so it can accommodate that LED daytime running light. The lower grille is more aggressive, has those wider vents going on down here. And then up here on this one, that grille is shorter because you don't have these daytime running lights. And then this lower bumper is, you know, it's a lot less aggressive. This one does have fog lights on the bottom, but on the newer one you don't get that. This one does not have the Distronic or the radar for the cruise control, but this one does actually have that, right? So you have that cruise control sensor, and then you have the front parking sensors. This one doesn't have those front parking sensors compared to the newer one, but the grills are almost identical where that says AMG. I mean, it's literally almost the exact same thing between both. And then you have your headlight washers, that's more or less identical. You have this shield here on these ones. The newer one does not have that. 2 Phillips screws here. 2 Phillips screws here. I mean, that's more or less the same, right? Another interesting thing I've noticed is the badging. The front emblem on the older one is much smaller, right? It's much smaller. That front emblem is much bigger, has more detail in my opinion. If you look at it up close, it looks a little more detailed versus this one has kind of less detailing on it.